What is up, my friends and fellow Busybees? I hope you're all having a wonderful week, and if it's a day that's relevant to you, I hope that you had a very happy Valentine's Day earlier this week. Whether you spent it with a special someone, friends, family, or even just gave yourself some self-care love, that's super important too. For today's episode, I wanted to have a bit of real talk with you, yes, you, who has decided to turn your furniture painting and refinishing into an official business and have intentions to grow it. Maybe you hope to one day be able to go full-time in the business, and you're still treating it like a hobby. Like, you love the idea of being a business owner and you're doing things by the book and doing what you can to contribute and grow the business, except are you really? Or are you still treating it like a hobby and just doing it when you please or when you feel called to it, but you still only really have one leg in and one leg out? Does that sound familiar? Don't worry, you're not the only one. Now, I'm fully aware that there are plenty of people out there who do furniture flips as a fun little hobby, either to act as a creative outlet or maybe just even out of necessity to have furniture in your home that is tailored to your style and the pieces that you wish existed in stores, but you want to keep it as inexpensive as possible. That is totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with that if it's your intention to keep it as a hobby. I love that. I think it's an awesome hobby to have and one that you can really get into, that state of flow and in the zone in such a great way, for me at least. So don't let this episode feel like I'm trying to encourage or bully or force you into monetizing your hobby or starting a business, because if you don't want that for you, then I don't either. But I think a lot of the times we can have those ambitions and desires for more, for a life where we have these businesses doing furniture painting or furniture refinishing, and then we finally make that leap to take it to the next level, to take it from being a hobby to being a business. And it's a big step, and I know for me at least, it was kind of freaky because I had no idea what that would entail since I didn't have a business background. I knew it was something that I wanted to do and continue doing, but I was also like, who do I think I am? What do I know about running a business like this? I barely even know what I'm doing on my furniture makeovers. Like, what's going on? And whatever that internal dialogue is saying for you, that's our self-doubt creeping in. It's horrible, but it's in all of us somewhere. And it's telling us that we aren't worthy of something like that, or we aren't exceptional, so why should something like that work out for us? It tells us that we don't have anyone around us doing something similar, so how are we supposed to know what to do? Or how could we tell if we were doing it right? Or more importantly, if we were doing it wrong? And because we are human, we're susceptible to letting this self-doubt creep into our subconscious and keep us stagnant, keep us in place and not moving or evolving. So we have a business, but we treat it like a hobby because we aren't believing in ourselves, in our worthiness, in our capabilities, and in our ability to just figure it out as we go. Because let's get real, none of us on this earth really know what we're doing, am I right? We're just figuring it out as we go, asking for advice or researching when we need to, and just doing our best to make the right decisions and do and say the right things. Does the term fake it till you make it ring a bell? So this self-doubt comes in and then we start to feel fake or unworthy or insert feeling of lack here. And we start to get that imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, which, for the record, every person on this planet feels at one point or another. Even the people you look at who you aspire to be like. Even celebrities, even scholars, even politicians, even the most confident, well-rounded, successful people that you come across. So in the kindest way possible, let me remind you that you are not all that different, not all that unique, so you too can achieve these great things if you put your mind, time, and dedication to it. Period. Hard stop. So you need to shoot for what you really want. Do you want this furniture painting and refinishing business? Great, then let's start treating it like a business and stop being scared of just trying. Attempting something and failing at it or experiencing a barrier or screwing something up is the only way we will effectively learn, and in order to do that, you need to do. So don't shy away from or be afraid of achieving success. You may even be someone listening who currently just does these furniture flips as a hobby or a little side hustle, and you have the itch to really pursue it and see what you could make of it, but you might be scared that you could make it official and turn it into a business and then potentially fail. So that keeps you scared or nervous and keeps you playing small and staying in your comfort zone of what you're currently doing and what you know works. But we need to step past those comfort zones in order to achieve growth. So do your best to push past that fear of success or failure and just give her a go. I can say with near certainty that if you put your all into it and really commit and give it your best shot and make changes when you see things aren't working, you will grow. You will learn. You will develop skills and your business will progress. Maybe it won't explode as fast as you had hoped. Maybe you'll encounter roadblocks or screw up along the way. There's no shame in that. If you put yourself out there and give it your all, people will be inspired by you trying. They will encourage you. They will support you. And so your attempt, however flawed, could end up motivating others to do the same. Or at least get their gears spinning and getting them that much closer to trying out the thing that they've been thinking about but nervous to do. When I was about to announce to my previous job that I was deciding to leave and pursue my business full-time, I'll be honest, I was really nervous. Not so much about going all in on the business. That nervousness and second guessing came after I finally took the plunge, but about the reaction that I would get, which is so dumb. Who cares what other people think, but it's just what our brains inherently go to. I was prepared to have to defend my reasoning for doing it, explain that I had thought things through and set myself up for success, and had plans B, C, and D ready in case they were needed, and just generally answer to people's surprised reactions and being like, "Oh my god, but what about your pension?" Essentially, I was catastrophizing in my mind and assuming the worst and that people would be skeptical, judgmental, or cynical about my choice. My choice that I assumed they would think was reckless, poorly thought out, or unrealistic. But something surprising happened. People I talked to were not only supportive and excited for me, but I also heard so many stories from people talking about things that they had wished they'd pulled the trigger on and pursued when they were younger. I heard about passions that could have turned into businesses had they just taken the leap and tried. I heard about people's fears from the past, about how they were worried they weren't going to be able to figure it out, so they never really tried. And I heard about regret, the very thing I didn't want to end up with that nudged me into the decision I was announcing. So I went forward with this support and encouragement and positivity from those around me, and I still feel it to this day with old colleagues not old colleagues, but previous colleagues that still follow me and support my business in different ways. So literally the opposite of what I had built up in my mind. So let yourself think big, act big, take big leaps, and push yourself past that comfort zone and start treating your business like a business. I know that it can be easy to want to keep things laid back and go with the flow and easygoing because we think if we set goals or deadlines or start certain projects that we're going to add stress to our plate and it will make it no longer enjoyable. I know that was a fear that I had when I was deciding to really pursue this from a business standpoint. I didn't want it to feel like work because then I thought that I would lose my love for it. But I can honestly say that now, doing what I really enjoy doing every day, I don't feel like I'm quote-unquote working because every day is just a fun new challenge, a new thing to learn, a new approach to try out, or a new leap to make. So don't create that stress for yourself and you'll find yourself feeling more fulfilled, excited, challenged, and determined. So what are some ways that we can find ourselves, whether subconsciously or not, playing small and treating our businesses like a hobby? I'm so glad you asked. So here's the thing about businesses. Their goal is to create profit, which is money. More money in than money out. We don't want to be spending more than we're making, in theory, because there's some startup costs and things like that, but the ultimate goal is to be making more than we are spending. And one way that we can play small is by not charging enough for our pieces to make this happen. And honestly, I see this more often than not, and it's my biggest pet peeve in this space. Because it just then sets a standard that is low, so people opt to typically go for a piece that is half the cost, which is understandable. And now this obviously depends on where you're located for how much you'll be charging for pieces, because some places the standard is higher, and in some places people aren't willing to pay as much for pieces. So that's why some market research is really required for each person to figure out what that sweet spot is. You might be charging too little and not making your nut, either because you see others charging that amount or hear them talking about it on social media, but they don't even live in your country. Or maybe you just don't believe that people would be willing to pay any more for your work than you're currently charging. Again, that's that self-doubt and negative self-talk creeping in. So nip that in the bud and let's get objective and start paying attention to the prices that you're charging. And I recommend this even if you're just selling your pieces as a little hobby or an unofficial side hustle, because at the end of the day, we all rise by lifting each other and raising our prices as a whole. Because the consumers, the clients buying these products, they don't know how much or little you're putting into this business or what your deal is, right? They don't know that it's just a casual little hobby that you do on the weekends. And early on, I was definitely charging too little for both my pieces that I sold and my custom projects that I was doing. Looking back, I know that now. And like I said, we need to make those mistakes or learn those lessons in order to grow and figure our shit out. When I figured out that I was charging less than I should be, and also less than it was making it feel worth it, particularly for custom work, because I underestimated the amount of added time going back and forth with clients to figure out what they're hoping to achieve on the piece, touching base along the way as I worked on the piece, and all that added stuff, I was a little nervous when I started charging more. I worried that people would receive the estimates and either laugh and ghost me or some other overly dramatic thing, or maybe just look around until they found someone who would do the work for less money, because I'm sure there's someone out there that would have. But that never really happened, because my conversion rate is pretty high to this day of people who receive estimates that end up moving forward with the project, and I had a realization. People are coming to us for us and our expertise. Maybe they found you on social media. Maybe they saw a different piece of yours for sale that they liked the look of. Maybe they heard about you and your work through word of mouth. Whatever it is, that's likely the thing that is bringing them to you, and the price isn't the be-all, end-all. If it's out of their budget or they had a completely different number in mind, sure, that could be a barrier to some. No doubt, it plays a role, but it's not the sole thing people are looking at. So remind yourself of that the next time you're feeling hesitant to shoot your shot and charge what you're really worth. And I always come back to the fact that if people are not willing or able to, whether it's for a custom piece or for a piece you have listed for sale and somebody comes in and really lowballs you, maybe that person's just not meant to have your piece. Maybe they don't understand the time, the effort, the supplies, the frustrations, and all the things that can go into refinishing older pieces of furniture. So don't read that as it's something incorrect that you're doing or an error on your part for what you're charging. That just might not be the person that was meant to end up with the piece. That might not be a person who's used to buying refinished furniture. They might not realize that it is, a small business that's doing it. They might have just thought it was someone that slapped some paint on an old piece that's about to fall apart. You know what I mean? It's a different echelon, if you will. And a quick aside, because I mentioned those who keep things unofficial and just sell pieces as a little side hustle and keep things off the books. A reminder, as I always say, that I don't recommend this approach. There is the legalities aspect where you should be declaring any business you operate and declare any income received through the proper channels, etc., etc. But I know you already probably know that and have chosen not to, so fair enough. Let me tell you why else I think it's important to do. It's worth noting that a lot of the time we're advertising our work and our pieces online on social media, which are typically public accounts that at the end of the day aren't as anonymous as we'd like to think they are. There's specific locations tied to every post you make. There's IP addresses and probably other stuff too. I'm not a tech whiz, so that's the end of the jargon that I know, but that's all public information. You also are likely posting your pieces for sale in other public places, like maybe on Facebook Marketplace or other similar online marketplace apps or websites where, again, everything is public. Now, do I think that means that you will inevitably get quote-unquote caught? No, not necessarily. However, I do know that the tax agencies are developing new strategies every day, and they're creating new ways of catching people who aren't declaring their income and are committing fraud. And a lot of people do it and advertise these things online. So all that to say is there's the possibility of not flying under the radar. So just be aware of that and beware. I encourage people to register their businesses because I don't want anyone getting into trouble. It will also just give you the peace of mind of knowing that you've done your part and crossed your T's and dotted your I's and everything is in order as it should be. But ultimately, when you're registered and submitting your business income and expenses, you get to write off those business expenses, which will end up being a lot more things than you probably realize or are thinking of. Pieces you source, any products you use to make over your piece, your tools, your gas to pick up the pieces and to deliver them, part of your phone bill since you use your phone for business, and you're likely working out of your home and using a portion of it as your workshop. So there are write-offs with that as well. After all of these expenses are tallied, unless you're making fucking bank, they'll likely be totaling more than your actual income anyways if you just have a little side hustle flipping pieces here and there. So there, in theory, won't be anything to worry about tax-wise or any implications or added costs. Putting an asterisk there that this is not official information, but you know what I'm saying. And if that's not the case and you still have much more income than expenses, well, then you should have been registered anyways. I don't know what to tell you. It's how the world works. Welcome to adulting. No one enjoys it. But having your business registered and treating it like a business instead of a hobby makes you get a lot more intentional with your time and your systems and how you're running your business. Or you maybe should be more intentional with these systems and things like that if you aren't already. It makes your life so much easier, I promise. If you want to make sure that you have the basics set up for your business, feel free to check out the show notes of this episode where I will link my free guide and checklist for starting an official furniture painting and refinishing business that can help you make sure that you're on the right path. And little spoiler alert for my loyal podcast listeners, I will soon be announcing mini consultations that I'm going to be offering to talk all about running a business, doing furniture makeovers that you can sign up for free that will be played as little shorty episodes on the podcast periodically. I want to help you guys set up these systems and get all these things in order or surpass any hurdles or barriers that you may be experiencing in either setting up your business or moving it forward, whatever that looks like for you. I get these questions all the time through email and in my DMs, and I'm always happy to answer them and to help people along, but I want to be able to give that information kind of more far and wide. So I want to be able to sit down, have a chat, and walk through that in this kind of format with somebody so that if others are out there that are experiencing similar things, it might start to get their gears turning or help them, surpass whatever it is that they're currently facing. So if you're interested in being one of the first ones to hear about this when I launch them, send me a DM on Instagram at MelDidItHerself or shoot me an email to the email address linked in the show notes, and I'll be sure to add you to the waitlist. The last thing that making your business official and treating it like a business instead of a hobby will do is to force you to look at the numbers that I was talking about earlier. You sit down and are forced to face the facts of whether or not you are profitable, so you can then see if you need to be upping what you charge for your pieces and if you're eating money when you really feel like you're making it. And if determining all of these things and interpreting the numbers is something totally foreign to you and you have no idea what to do, then this forces you to kind of have to go and Google or research, ask questions, and thus learn and expand your knowledge. And in turn, you will just increase your confidence in yourself, your abilities, and it will result in growth. It's a win-win in my books. I don't see any downsides. And something you may not know about me, I love little motivational messages. They always get me fired up, and I keep a running list of ones that are especially catchy or speak to me in the Notes app on my phone. So I end every podcast episode with one of those that I've noted down over the years in hopes that you take those and leave our time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way this week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking. Because as much as it can seem like these people who are successful and are doing these big things and taking these great leaps in their businesses, in their social media, or whatever strategies that you're watching them on, though I can't officially confirm it, I can say with almost certainty that these people are fearful as well. They have fears, they are nervous about things, they're pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. These things don't come naturally to them. A lot of these things don't come naturally to anybody, but it's just the repeated exposure that makes it easier each time. And they took the time to learn these things, to figure out what works. And sometimes that's through trial and error. And sometimes it's error and we screw up. And from there, as I said, all you do is learn. So don't look at these people, think that they're so brave, so courageous, and you can never do a thing such as that because you aren't that. Because they probably aren't that either. They're probably somebody just like you and I, like your neighbor, like your teacher, like the guy at the Tim Hortons drive-thru, like the businessman you pass on the subway, like a billionaire that you see in articles. At the end of the day, we're all just scared little humans trying to figure our shit out. And sometimes we fuck up, and sometimes we catch a lucky break, or we achieve success, or we work hard and it pays off. But none of these things come easily. It's very rare that you just catch some good luck and fall into extreme success or win the lottery, whatever that lottery looks like for you. Often it means that we have to dedicate time and effort and energy and force ourselves to do those uncomfortable things, because the more you push yourself into those uncomfortable spaces, the less people are in those spaces, because the less people move past that barrier of entry. Because at the end of the day, if we're happy with where we're at, it's easy to just get complacent and stagnant and not really pursue those things that you have in the back of your mind, or think that that's a possibility or that it could ever be possible for you. So courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking. And remember that as you go into your life, because any leap that we take, any challenge that we face, any hurdle that we have, it always requires some courage. And that courage can still have some fear tied to it, some uneasiness, but try and rewire your brain to interpret that as excitement, as being so excited for what you're about to learn or how good it's going to feel once you actually do that thing. If you are nervous to apply to a job that you don't think you're quite qualified for, but it's your dream job and you meet most of the requirements, just apply. If there's somebody that you've had your eye on and you think they're totally out of your league and they would never pay you the time of day, embrace that fear and walk in that courage and just ask them out. With all of these leaps that we take, the worst thing that can happen is somebody says no or we don't hear back. That is the absolute worst thing that can happen. And anything worse that we make up in our mind as being this catastrophe that we believe will just inevitably happen and is kind of the only thing that could ever happen if we were to pursue this thing, 9 times out of 10, that's never going to happen. That's not going to be a reality that you ever see. So pull your panties up and shoot your shot, get out there, act courageous, and walk in that fear. And let me know if it works out for you. All right, that's it for now. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you guys next week.